Welcome back. Okay, so we've launched our Amazon EC2 instance on the AWS cloud. And what I want to do now is show you how to connect to your instance. It's a little bit different depending on whether you're using Windows or Mac or Linux. Now, in my case, I'm using a Mac, but I'll also show you how to do it in Linux. And I'll do that by actually launching an Amazon EC2 instance that uses the Windows operating system. And I'll launch it into a different region just to show you that it's completely remote and external to this particular EC2 instance that we're connecting to. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to another region just to set up that Windows server so that it starts booting while I show you how to connect using my Mac. So I've changed my region to Singapore. I'm going to choose Launch Instance, and I'm just going to scroll down until I get to Windows Server 2019 Base. Choose Select. I'll leave it on T2 Micro. I don't need to make any changes there. Let's just choose Next. Go through to Security Group, and I'm going to do the same thing here by just calling this Web Access and copying and pasting that so we've got the same security group name. Now, in this case, you may note that it's chosen a different protocol. It's the Remote Desktop Protocol, RDP, which listens on port 3389. Because this is a Windows server, so we don't connect over Secure Shell, which uses port 22. We connect over RDP, which uses 3389. So let's just choose Launch. And again, we're going to have to create a key pair. So this time I'm going to call it Singapore-KP. Choose Download. Going to allow that and then choose Launch Instances. So that one's launching, and that will be ready by the time we've finished doing this other part of the demonstration. So I'm going to head back to the Sydney region, cancel out of that, go to Instances, and I've got the instance highlighted. And if I click on Connect here, it actually gives me some important information here. So it tells me that I need to find my key pair and run this command, which is chmod, so that changes the permissions on the file. So I have to run chmod 400 and then the name of my file, and then I can connect to my instance using its public DNS name. And an example of the actual command is right here for me. So we can literally copy and paste these. So let's just copy this command here. I'm going to go back to a command prompt. And on my command prompt here, I'm actually in a directory with that file. So I should be able to just run chmod 400 and the name of the file, and that's completed successfully. I can then come back here and I can literally just copy this entire command and go back to the command line. So what this command does is it uses SSH. We then use the -i parameter to specify the key pair file. And then we're logging in with the user EC2-user at, and then the DNS name of the instance. So you could use the IP address, the public IP address here as well, but you have to use EC2-user. So let's hit enter, and we get this message here. We have to type yes and hit enter, and that's it. We're actually on our instance now. So if I just clear the screen, come down, this is us logged into our instance. So we've now got a secure shell connection to an Amazon EC2 Linux instance on the AWS cloud. So we're connected from the internet to our instance, and the instance also has outbound connectivity to the internet. So we could, for instance, run yum update -y, and it would actually install all the packages. So it pulls down all the updates for the packages on the system. So that just shows you that we're actually connected to the internet as well. So back in the AWS Management Console, let's now have a look at how we can go back to Singapore and connect to our Windows instance. And then from the Windows instance, we're going to connect to the Linux instance. So you can see how to do it if you were on a Windows desktop, for example. So you're also going to learn now how to connect to a Windows instance, which is slightly different. So here you can see we have some different options. Now, firstly, we need to get the password for the administrator account. So I choose File. I go to Documents, AWS, and that's where I've stored my key pair file. So I need to choose Singapore in this instance. So I choose my key pair file, and we can see the contents of it here, and then I choose Decrypt Password. and it gives me the password. So what I can do now is take this public DNS name, and I'm going to use an RDP client to connect to this instance. So here's my RDP client. I'm going to choose add PC and put in my PC name. Click on add. I'm going to connect to it. I need to put in administrator as the username. Come back here, just grab that password, and then back on this screen I can paste in the password, click on continue, choose continue again, and this will be a little bit different if you have a different client, but this is what I need to use to connect to Windows from my computer. So now I'm logging on to a Windows server on Amazon EC2. And in this case, I'm located in Australia and the instance is actually in Singapore. So if you're on a Windows desktop, you just do the same thing. Obviously, I'm doing this from Windows Server, but it doesn't really make much difference. So just search for PuTTY download. And let's choose this option at the top here, putty.org, and choose download PuTTY. So we've got some installers here. I'm going to choose the 64-bit MSI installer. Click on run, and let's just click through. And pretty much the defaults with this. I don't think I need to change anything. I could install a shortcut on my desktop if I want to, but I'll just find it in the start menu. So let's click on finish, and that's done. So now we can go to the start menu and we should be able to find PuTTY. And there's some tools here. Now the first one we need is something called PuTTyGen. So let's open PuTTyGen. And what we need to do is convert our key pair file. So that key pair file that you saw before is a .pem file, but we can't use that with this. We need a .ppk file. So what we need to do now is actually find our PEM file, and then we're going to convert it into the ppk file. So I'm going back to my desktop. So what we need to do here is we found our key pair file for our server in Sydney, which is the one we're going to connect to from Singapore. I'm going to open this. I need to choose an application to open it with. I'm going to choose text edit and click open. And then we get the contents of the file. Now you shouldn't share this, but I'm going to delete this and recreate a new key pair before I release these videos. So I'm actually going to copy the contents of my key pair file and then create another file out of that contents. So back on my Windows server, I'm going to find Notepad, paste my key pair file in there, so the contents of my key pair file, and then I'm just going to save this one, and I'll just put it on the desktop, and let's call this Sydney-KP, and it can be a text file, that's fine. So let's just save that. I can close out of there, and now what I want to do is in the PuTTyGen tool, I need to click on load, go to desktop. Now, by default, it's looking for a PPK, so you've got to choose all files, choose my Sydney KP, click on open, and then I can click on save private key. Click on yes, and I'll just call this Sydney-KP, and this time it will be a .ppk file. So let's click on save, and that's done. So that's it for PuTTyGen. Now we can go to PuTTY. Click on PuTTY here. So I need to get the DNS name for my Amazon EC2 instance now. So let's head back to the AWS Management Console. So back in the Management Console, I need to change back to Sydney to get the right DNS address. And you can get your DNS address from here. So if I just bring that up for you, you can see the public DNS. I can click on copy, or I could do the same with the IP. We can use the public IP as well. So I'm going to paste in that DNS name. And then at the beginning of this line, I need to put in EC2-user, because remember, this is the user you need to specify. So EC2 user at, and then the DNS name. And then we've got port 22 and secure shell. So that's good. Let's click on SSH down here. And this is where we go to auth. And then we can click on browse, and we'll be able to specify that key pair file, the PPK file. So let's click on open, and then open again. So there we are, we're logged into our Amazon Linux 2 AMI, and this particular instance is in Sydney, and I'm connecting to it from Singapore. So you can follow that same procedure to use the PuTTY client on your Windows desktop machine in order to connect to your instance in the cloud. Now, depending on the Windows operating system you're using, you may also find that you do have a secure shell command line. So you can try that out first as well. If you have secure shell command line, it may be easier than using PuTTY. Now, just before I finish this lesson, in the next lesson, we're actually going to launch some new instances. So I can actually delete these now. So what I'm going to do, I'm in Sydney for this one. I've selected my instance. I'm going to choose Actions, Instance State, and then Terminate. And we get a notice here to tell us that the default action for the root EBS volume, so the storage volume, is that it will be deleted. So when it's deleted, that means all data is gone. So I'm okay with that. Let's choose Terminate, and that's our instance terminating. And then I'm going to go over to Singapore as well because I have another instance there, and then just perform the same action. So again, I just select my instance, choose Actions, Instance State, and then Terminate. So I hope you enjoyed this lesson, and in the next lesson we're going to look at how we can install a website using what's called user data.